Hello, new trip leader or people who are watching this on the Rec Center social media. This is a training video for UNLV Outdoor Adventures on how to use the Global Positioning System and the Personal Locator Beacon. So let's get started. Trip Leader 1, also referred to as TL1, is the most senior trip leader leading a trip, and they are responsible for holding the GPS and PLB because they are such expensive and important pieces of equipment. Let's get familiar with the GPS. UNLV OA uses a Garmin brand handheld GPS and satellite communicator. So what can you use it for? You'll be mapping waypoints with your GPS. That's the main thing that you're going to be doing with it. And as you map these waypoints, it will create a map. That way you can go back and look at your labeled waypoints and say, okay, now I have a map for this trail. Or if you're on a new trail, you can look into your GPS and find waypoints that somebody else has mapped and use that as a guide. You can also send your waypoints to a cell phone number. So every 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to be sending a waypoint to the program coordinator of Outdoor Adventures. That way they're going to know where we are in real time. You can also use the GPS to call for help via the SOS button. And it can also give you weather updates if you're seeing a storm or brewing or you're seeing some crazy weather that wasn't anticipated when you check the weather before you left for your trip. So you might be thinking, that's great, but how do I actually use it? We're going to do a little overview of how to use the Garmin here, but don't worry, you're going to be getting a lot of hands-on training with your TL1 on your first and second training trips, so don't worry if you're not getting all the nitty-gritty bits right now in this video. It's just an overview. To turn on your GPS, it's going to be this button right here. To navigate the GPS, you're going to be using this D-pad right here. This is your enter button, this is your back button, and this is your menu. You won't be worrying about these three buttons. I've literally never used them. You're only going to use these four buttons right here. This is your battery life. Make sure it's at 100 before you leave for your trip. This is the time, and then this little arrow right here will indicate whether or not you have GPS signal. If there's a circle with a slash through it, that means you don't have GPS signal, and you probably just need to make sure the GPS has a clear view of the sky so it can like talk to the satellites and stuff. And then these two arrows are just whether or not it's sending and receiving signals that are not GPS signals. So you'll see it when you send a message and receive a message. Speaking of sending and receiving messages, you'll do that in the Messages app. So you use the D-pad and then the enter button to get into the Messages app, and then it will prompt you from there on how to send a message. It's very intuitive. You basically just type in the cell phone number, type your little message, and then send it. Waypoints are really the most important thing that you're going to be doing with the GPS. So to just plot waypoints, you're going to use the Waypoints app. You can plot them manually and individually. So you can plot just one waypoint if you want to, and then label it like fork in the trail, go left, or whatever. But what we usually do with the waypoints is set them to plot at intervals. So every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. And that way it's going to map the trail for you as you go and you don't need to worry about it. If you're doing that in the Waypoints app, it's not going to send it to anybody. But if you turn on tracking, you can send the waypoints to a specific cell phone number. We'll usually be sending them to the PCOA unless she's on vacation. Then we'll be sending it to another higher up of the OA department. So you'll set up your tracking to send waypoints at intervals, usually of 10 to 15 minutes. Then if you go into your routes, it will map waypoints that were created close together time-wise and geographically and create a route with it, and you can look at past routes. So if you're looking for a map of a specific trail, you're going to be finding it in the routes. If you go to map, it's just going to show you all the waypoints that you happen to have in a region. So if you're at Mount Charleston in an area near, let's say, Mary Jane Falls, where there are multiple trails that we hike, you're going to be getting waypoints from all of those trails. So it would be more advantageous to you to use the routes button rather than the map button. You can use the SOS app to call for help, but you really should just press the SOS button. It'll prompt you, be like, are you sure you want to call for help? And then if you really do, then say yes. And then if not, then say no. And then the weather app, you can use it to check the weather. It's pretty self-explanatory. The GPS is one of the most important pieces of equipment that you're going to be bringing with you, but you really only need to remember to do a few things with it while you're actually leading your trip. The first of which is to charge the dang GPS. You're going to be prompted to do this on your trip planning checklist, but even if it says 100% battery, just charge it the day before or the weekend before just to make sure that you have that battery. You don't want to get to the trailhead and then realize it's dead or at 10%. It's not going to be a good time. And then check for previously saved waypoints for the trail you're going on. They can have some secrets in there that you didn't know about or anything really to help you out with your trip. Once you're on the trail, when you get to the trailhead, you're going to want to turn on your tracking and turn on your waypoints. And then when you stop for water or you stop for lunch halfway through, just check and see that they're actually saving the waypoints or that they're actually sending them out. And then if they're not, just turn it on. It's okay if you've missed, 15 or 30 minutes worth of waypoints. You're not going to get in trouble as long as you have a good excuse. And then when you return to the trailhead at the end of the trail, remember to turn off your tracking. I can't tell you how many times I've logged waypoints that are just us driving home. When you get back to campus, just turn off the GPS and put it away. You don't need to do anything special with it. The waypoints should be saving automatically. If the GPS has all of these features, why would you ever need another device? Well, the SOS function on the GPS only calls local emergency services. So what if you're in a life or death emergency in which emergency services cannot reach you? At that point, you're going to be using your personal locator beacon. The personal locator beacon calls military emergency rescue services. So the military will come and rescue you from the backcountry or wherever you are that emergency services cannot reach you. However, it is very expensive. So this is reserved for life and death emergencies. This is what the PLB looks like. Before you leave on a trip, you want to make sure that it works. By doing that, you're going to hit the test button. That's this button right here. When you hit the test button, you'll see a bunch of lights flash, and this screen will let you know that the test is in progress and the results of the test. If the PLB lets you know that there's anything wrong on this screen, you're going to bring it to the attention of the PCOA before you leave on your trip. Your trip planning checklist is going to prompt you to check this beacon before you leave, within the week before you leave, so you should have enough time to bring it to the program coordinator's attention if there is a problem. Now, if you ever actually have to use it, you're going to release the antenna by pulling the screen tab toward you, and then that will uncover a button underneath this green tab. It's a red button that kind of looks like the power symbol. When you press it, it is actually going to send military services your GPS coordinates, and they will come and rescue you. So this is the button that is the end all be all. Don't press it unless you're really in a life and death emergency and you have to be rescued. Hopefully you've got a better understanding of how to use the GPS and the PLB. Like I said, on your first 2 shadow trips, you're going to be utilizing your TL1 to teach you how to use these things. And if you ever have any questions, you can ask the program coordinator, the graduate assistant, or any senior trip leaders. They're more than happy to help you out.